A warm welcome to everyone for our PCQuest 35 years journey from 1987 to 2022. Today, we will be looking into whether digital India is ready to go to the next stage. And for that, we have no one better to discuss this with us in the form of the stalwart Nandan Nilekani, co-founder and chairman of the board of Infosys and former chairman of the Unique Identification Authority of India. Welcome.
Thank you, Sunil. I'm great to be on the show to commemorate 35 years of PCQuest.
Yeah, thank you so much. So I think I'll get straight to it. Like before we discuss the future of digital India, can you tell us what was the status of digital India in say 2019? And what kind of transformation has it undergone during the pandemic era? Because even though I think the pandemic is ending, it still continues to be the hot topic. So I'll be curious to know the status and what all action happened in the last 2 years.
Well, I think many of the building blocks of digital India had already been laid out in the last few years. What the pandemic did was to accelerate this, because once people were essentially not able to meet other people, they were locked in their houses. You just have to do everything digitally. You met people digitally, you did your work digitally, you ordered products digitally, you got your food delivery done digitally, and so on. So I think what the pandemic did was accelerate existing trends. But Digital India has really been a spectacular success because for the first time, we have used the Jam Trinity, for example. Of course, the mobile phone success is well known, and we have over 1 billion phones and maybe 600-700 million smartphones. And we have the cheapest data rates in the world that has allowed people to use unlimited bandwidth on their devices. But we also had the Aadhaar project, which I led for 5 years. And today we have 1.3 billion people on Aadhaar with 50 million authentications a day. And that's also the basis for linking bank accounts. There are more than 700 million Aadhaar linked bank accounts. And that provided the fundamentals for the largest cash transfer in the world. So all these pieces of the puzzle had been laid in place. What the pandemic did was show the power of these kind of tools. For example, the government was able to use the DBT to give emergency funding to vulnerable population, running into hundreds of millions of people getting money into the bank accounts. So essentially, I think Digital India came in very, very useful and strategic when the pandemic struck.
And I just was wondering, since you mentioned the Aadhaar and that was established more than 10 years ago. So I think it's right. How do you look at this long journey from inception to where it has reached today? Because 5 years was a long time. So how were those 5 years? And
sure. Well, even the action precedes that. When Mr. Chandrasekhar was the IT secretary before he went on to become NASSCOM president, he had laid the foundations for so-called mission mode projects. And many of the early projects like the passport project and all were all part of that. And then one of the projects was the ID project, which I took up in 2009. People didn't really fully grasp the importance of and the strategic value of digital ID. But I was very fortunate that the government of the day chose me for this project. I got a rank of a cabinet minister. I was based in Delhi for 5 years. And we were able to build this very sophisticated technology that gave everybody a digital ID. They could verify it online, and it could be done, in millions of transactions. So by the time I stepped down in 2014, it had reached 600 million people had the ID, and the usage had just begun. And then I had a meeting with Prime Minister Modi as soon as he came into power, and he became a big enthusiast and supporter of Aadhaar and the Jam Trinity. And then the new government took it even further to go to 1.3 billion Aadhaar IDs, the bank accounts using the Jandan program. So now the 700 million bank accounts, it used DBT very, very deeply. So I think, what it shows is that once you start putting the building blocks in place, then they get used. And over time, India is really the sort of the best place in the world for demonstration of what we call as digital public goods.
So, and another thing I was keen on is that, like urban India has really gone far. The government has done schemes. What about rural India? Like, I'm quite interested in BharatNet schemes, which, promises high-speed internet networks and digital rural
Uh,
India. So how important is that, and what progress has been made in
No,
digital rural
no, I
India?
think rural is equally important. And of course, there are many initiatives. One, of course, is BharatNet, which is using the USO funds to lay in rural India. And I believe it's reaching many more villages. Then we have had this whole CSC, customer service centers, which are across all the towns. And people can go to these locations and they can get their services done or get a certificate printed. Then there's been the rise of business correspondents. So banking business correspondents today in rural India are online, and they're online because mobile connectivity in the last few years, thanks to the efforts of Geo and Airtel and Vodafone Idea and BSNL. And so we have today a few 100,000 banking correspondents who are able to both open bank accounts in rural India as well as allow people to withdraw money from rural India. And just to give you an example, today the Aadhaar enabled payment system, which allows people to withdraw money from bank account in rural India, does 90 million transactions a month worth 25,000 crores. And similarly, if you look at the IMPS, which is the NPCI platform for crediting money, which is primarily used by migrants. So, we really now have major schemes that are targeting rural India.
And what about Make in India, Startup India? How are these doing? I guess they're also an integral part of Digital India. Startups have
Yeah.
really taken off. So,
I think when you look at digital India, there are three facets to it. The first facet is what we just talked about, that India is building a large set of digital public goods, be it Aadhaar or UPI, account aggregator, FASTag, ONDC, any other that are enabling large scale implementation of technology. The second is the growth of the IT sector. The IT sector, which began around the same time that PCQuest began, it took about 30 years to reach $100 billion in revenue, and it took only 10 years to reach $200 billion in revenue, and it'll take years to reach $300 billion in revenue. So you can see the pace has gone up. 100 billion took 20 years, the next 100 billion took 10 years, the third 100 billion is only 4 years. And it took 40 years to reach a size of employees about 4.5 million. That is going to double within the next decade. So what took 40 years will now happen in the next 10 years. So that's one big part of what's going to happen. And the third leg of this is the startup world. And here, last year, I think there were more startups last year which became unicorns than all the unicorns in the years preceding that. And therefore, there also you're seeing a step function change. And startups are going to be a huge source of innovation, a huge source of job creation, and a huge source of solving India's pain points.
So I think a lot of things have been covered. Two more like emerging technologies I would be interested in is like health tech and agri-tech. So the Ayushman Bharat digital mission has been there. So how is that? Will it be able to unify, because medical data is quite a different, part altogether. And the second part is like, when it comes to agri-tech, I read an Ernst & Young report last year, which says that the potential was just 1%. Like it would has 250 million, it can go up to 25 billion. So like, health tech, agri-tech, these two, where do they feature? Do we have a long way to go? I would be
No, I
interested.
think we are on the way. I mean, I think in some sense, COVID also did an acceleration of health tech. For example, the National Health Authority CEO, Ram Sevak Sharma, was earlier with me at UIDAI. He was the DG of UIDAI when I was the chairman. So we have worked closely together for last 13 years. And he's leading the charge. The COVID platform was very widely used to have the world's largest vaccination drive. India is the only country which has issued 1.8 billion digital vaccination certificates, which you can store on your phone, take a hard copy, or store on the cloud in your DigiLocker, fully verifiable, so there's no fake certificates and all that. And now with the Ayushman Bharat Digital Health Mission, NH looking at creating a universal health record, which allows you to take your health records, make it portable, very similar to how UPI is in payments. And I'm confident that NHA and the Ministry of Health will definitely bring a long way in improving or using technology in health, along, of course, with many startups. On the agri side also, we are seeing a lot more activity. It's not yet probably at the scale that we would like, but many agri startups are providing better inputs to farmers. They are improving the supply chain. One company I'm involved with called Ninja Cart is the largest B2B supply chain for fruits and vegetables in India. So, suddenly you're seeing tech being applied to agri. And I do hope that will continue, because that will be a key part of getting India into a modern economy.
And one more thing, it's like also something like smart infrastructure. Another, a lot, we don't hear much about industrial corridors, the Bharatmala project, the Sagarmala projects. So how is technology being used in these infrastructure projects? And that is also, of course, an integral part of Digital India.
No, I think, if you look at, for example, look at very modern ports now that are processing few 100 million tons of cargo all the time. Our airports are getting world class, and they've been privatized. So we have airports like the Bangalore airport, which is run by Prem Vatsa. We have, the Bombay airport run by the Adanis, and the Delhi and Hyderabad airport run by the GMR group. So, airports are doing that. Many cities are getting, for example, much better digital infrastructure. One of the foundations that support eGov Foundation has helped in creating an open source platform for cities to use, so that all cities have a digital platform for their accounting, building plans, approvals, and so on. So yes, technology is also permeating the infrastructure area.
I guess all this together constitutes smart governance. So where are we towards smart governance? Where do we stand in the world then?
Well, I think we are heading there. I mean, the fact that you could do the world's largest cash transfer program in the pandemic shows that that's an example of smart governance. Today, for example, the FASTag is used on our highways. It collects 100 crores a day digitally. So when you drive your car or truck through a highway, it automatically bank account. And so the collections have improved. Today, NHI and other collections are over 40,000 crores a year. So I think we are seeing smart governance permeating everywhere. And as we are seeing in education, the Diksha program is probably the world's largest digital edtech program used by the government of India. So everywhere we are seeing this. So that's why we call this as the techade or the tech decade. And I'm convinced that in the next 10 years, by 2030, a significant part of India's economic growth, social improvements, per capita income improvements will all be driven by technology.
So I quite like that term techade. So if you can tell us about the decade. So I think it appears that Digital India is ready to go to the next level. So what is the next level, and what are the schemes we can look forward to in the next 5-10 years?
Well, I think, as I said, there are three parts to it. One is the IT industry will become the world's biggest IT industry. It's already at $227 billion, added $30 billion in 1 year. So it'll reach 400 billion in the next 2-3 years, and it'll be a very large business, employing millions of people by 2030. So that's one big driver. The digital public goods that India is creating, Aadhaar, UPI, account aggregator, ONDC, all those things, all of them will make plus health tech, ed tech, agri tech, all these things will make a dramatic difference to the people of India. And finally, we're going to see amazing startups. We are seeing every day new startups. All of them are working on India's wicked problems. And these innovators are going to build great companies which will solve all the problems of people. I mean, I was just reading about a startup which is aggregating eggs and making sure high quality eggs are delivered around the country. So, all kinds of things are happening. And therefore, I think I feel this three-pronged thing: global IT services as an economic driver of foreign exchange and growth and job creation, digital public goods for the country, which will transform in a way no other country has done. And then this huge number of startups come together in the next decade to create the decade.
So anyway, so I'll just continue a bit with the decade. What about the emerging technologies? Like where have we sorted? Where have we to go? AI, blockchain, quantum computing. So many of them are there.
Well, I think India is actually a huge user of AI. I don't know whether you realize, but AI is used in our Aadhaar authentication to make sure our authentication is genuine. AI is used by GST income tax to catch tax fraud. AI is being used in the National Language Translation Mission to be able to convert into 22 languages automatically, speech to text, text to text, text to speech, and so on. So AI is now becoming very widely used in India. Blockchain, yes, I wouldn't say there are that many applications, but blockchain is being used. And of course, cryptocurrency is a different matter. Take a view on that. And then, of course, there could be a government issued or RBI issued CBDC, central bank digital currency, that will use blockchain. Quantum computing, again, there's a lot of research. I believe there are a couple of startups, but it's early days yet. And then, of course, people talk about the metaverse kind of things, augmented reality, virtual reality. There again, there are a lot of use cases which we'll see in India in the coming years.
And final question I'd like to ask is about like the economy. I mean, so technology, is it helping us march towards like 5 million, 10 trillion, 20 trillion? Will it speed up now? How can we look forward?
Absolutely. Technology is going to be the key for India to become a middle income country. Key to reaching $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 per capita income. Of course, after that, there are other things, institutions and all that have to all pitch in. But definitely, I mean, the fact is that we have made, and India is using technology in a very positive way, improving the lives of people, giving them healthcare, education, jobs, skills. So it's the right use of technology. That's why public digital goods is so important.
Yeah. Okay, thank you for that. I think we really covered almost everything, and I'm
Thanks,
quite
Sunil.
hopeful for the decade.
Great.
Yeah. Okay.
See you.
See you. Okay. Thank you so much.